Hi, this is John Hilbrand. Today I'm going to walk you through a restoration of my 2006 Dodge Dakota. If you find this type of video helpful, give me a thumbs up and a like. I really would appreciate that. And a comment on some things that I need to do in the future or something that you've noticed about the video is always appreciated. All right, so let's get started. So if you look at this car and look at the before picture, you see the most obvious thing, and that is the finish. So what I decided to do was do a two-tone. That is where I basically sanded off the bad clear coat, and then I decided to leave the sides the original color. So that is what it looks like in two-tone, and I've taken the flare, as well as I had to do this line as well to keep it even. And did all of the upper doors and the roof, the tops of the fenders and the hood. So this finish is a metallic, and you can see what the finish looks like. I think this is the prettiest finish, and I would love to have it all over the car, but to be quite honest, I think the original paint is probably better than what I painted. So even though it's older, I still think the original paint is better quality. I also did a little thing called clear coat repair. That's where you take some sandpaper and sand the clear coat damage without going through the finish. Very hard to do, so that's why I can't really do it on the hood, because there was just so much of it. You're going to burn through, just obviously. But just a little bit here on this lip. You notice that everything that goes up towards the sun is clear coat damaged. Well, that's pretty obvious. That's where the sun out here in Inland Valley of Southern California, just 100-degree days. So I think it kind of matches Arizona or Nevada, maybe not as hot, but still gets that incredible sun damage on their vehicle. So let's talk about that paint, give you a little quick look at what I used. So this was the metallic, and this is, I'll have a link to it, and these are roughly 10 bucks a can. I used about 8 cans, maybe 7 cans of this, about 2 or 3 coats of finish, and then I used the clear. I did probably 4 coats of clear on everything, and I would do them successively, like let this flash off, do another coat, let this flash off, do another coat, let this flash off, do another coat, then go to this. And maybe the flash off was a little longer between these steps, but then I would do the multiple coats of this. And I spent probably a day doing the hood, a day doing the hood, a day doing the roof, and a day on the sides. So probably 3 different days. To start off with, I used these 400 sandpapers. They're orbital, and I really like the Velcro. So P400. When I mentioned that I did clear coat repair, I actually dipped these in water, and you have to be so careful not to go through the finish. And if you watch my video on it, I'll talk about it a little bit more. But the idea is that you sand to where when you get it wet, you don't see any more of the white. So you're just sanding it, and because it's dipping in water, I can kind of see what water looks like on it. And when I stop seeing the white part of the clear coat damage, then I'm good. I stop, and then I go to clear coat. So 400 as far as I would go, and I was careful not to sand through so I wouldn't have to prime. I didn't really want to prime. One reason is some people have mentioned their primer would cause trouble with their finish. And that's because people tend to use the wrong primer. So a lot of the primers are lacquer, and lacquer primer with enamel just doesn't really work very well. So, but I think if you stay with Rustolem, you'll probably have the right primer, but nonetheless, I didn't do it that way. And you can kind of tell the idea of the high build primer is after you get it sanded, then you can prime it, spray a guide coat, sand it a little bit, and get it all imperfections out. Now, this wasn't my idea. I just wanted it better. And so that's the paint. Let's move on to the next step of this vehicle. And we're going to stay outside for a minute. This sanding these. Now, there's a lot of videos on this, on how to do a headlight, but I have 1500 and 2000. Those are the sandpapers that I used on the headlight. And basically you sand when you got a haze until you get rid of that haze. And then you go to compounds and you just do your compounds. I have this one, and notice this one says ultra high, ultra cut. And when you have it down here, it's really fine. So I think I had 2 different levels to get to the finest until I was able to polish it down. I used a buffer for this, but when I did my car, originally when I did the sanding of the finish, did the compounding, I did it too early. And I was working on this, trying to get this transition nice and flat, and it would splatter because I was using the DA. And you can still kind of see a little dot of where the splatter hit. And I think the finish was just, it was too hot out, and the finish was getting some of that compound on it, and it would bake through so fast that even when I went to wipe it, it would stay. And so I tried sanding those and they won't go away. So my biggest advice is don't do the compounding in the sun, and don't do it while the paint is still new. So I waited 3 months, which is today. So this finish is about 3 months old now. And I just did this by hand, last week. So I chose not to use the DA, and the way I did it is wherever I took the 2000 and I went over it until I felt it incredibly smooth, being very careful not to go crazy with hand sanding a wet dry. It was dipped in water, so I'll say wet dry, but it was wet. I even went to 1500 when it was being difficult, and then I'd go back to 2000, and then I went to the ultra cut, and believe it or not, it would only take 2 or 3 passes by hand to get rid of the sand, the sanding marks. So very quickly cut through, even by hand. So I didn't have to use a DA. Try it yourself to see. It could be that the paint is softer than something else, but I found that it works so fast by hand. I'm able to go along here, go around edges, and if I was using a DA and wrapped it, it would have burned through. So just worked really well. So by hand with that compound, by hand with this. Now here's an interesting thing that's probably a fail. Well, everything is a little bit of a fail, but this is that tape. So people will talk about chrome tape, and I have a blemish right here and right there where it hit. It hit my own car, actually. This was behind my big work van, and my work van's brake released and backed into it, and it completely damaged it. So I just stuck some tape over it. So I don't think you would have noticed that if you were back here and I didn't tell you about it, but there you go. While I'm still out, I'm going to talk about some mechanics before I go inside. So when my son gave it back to me, the steering rack was just badly leaking, and I kept it out in the street, and its window didn't go up and down, so I couldn't go through a drive-through. I had my own low mileage vehicle as my second car, and so I really didn't need the truck, and I wasn't using it, but I still liked the truck better than my second car. But it has high miles, 165 on it. But I decided that I would sell it because those low mileage cars were getting so much at the time through COVID. I was able to get I think I got $9,500 for it. So it was a lot of money, and I just didn't see a reason to keep it. So I sold it. And but the steering rack leaked and I couldn't park it in the driveway. So I replaced the steering rack, and that took about 2 hours. It's about $150. One of the things I was very worried about was the alignment. And there is a nut that you unscrew to get the rack off. And you have to count the turns. So make sure you do that and are very specific. It'll also show a little rust line, and some people do a bit of paint to also hold that perfectly. So there are a lot of ways to do it to make sure it gets to the right tension. But if you do it perfectly, like I did, you won't have to realign your vehicle. But here's how you check it just in case. You put a jack stand over here, a jack stand over here with a string tied between them, and you get it tight. So then you measure to your center cap to the string, like have it somewhere out here where it won't touch the tire. So maybe 5 inches. And you measure to your center cap over there 5 inches. So now your string is perfectly parallel. This could even be on 2 sheets of cardboard, so it'll pivot without it having to be raised. So once those centers are perfectly parallel, measure from the outside of your tire to the string and the inside of your tire to the string with the steering wheel perfectly centered. If it's perfect, your alignment is perfect. You might get a little toe in, but that's really how you double check it. And you can even do a cheap alignment. I think they're called a ghetto alignment or something like that. But a lot of people do it that way if they want to do it themselves. I checked mine. Mine was rock on. And then when I would drive, no drift at all on the steering wheel, perfectly centered. It was fine. So I didn't have to do an alignment. All right, so we did all of these things. Let's move on to the inside of the car. Well, there's one more thing. There is another type of plastic treatment out there. There is Back to Black, which I had used in the past, but we were out. So I looked it up and they said petroleum jelly works too. So petroleum jelly. I just put some petroleum jelly on my black. Worked pretty good, you know, nice and black. And lastly, removing the tint. So all the tint videos will say heat it with the heating gun, and then it will start to peel good. Mine never did. Mine was so badly damaged. I don't know, maybe it was the heat or whatever. But what I had to do was you keep a good level of soapy water, and you keep the window nice and soapy with a nice box of razor blades, and you just have to razor blade it off. It took forever. I don't have a rear window that has the defroster, thank God, because I don't know how I would have gotten it off had I not. But it looks so much better once removed. I did leave it on this window. I actually called a window tinting guy, and I told him I want to have it retinted, and I already have tint on it. He said, why don't you go watch a YouTube video on how to get it off? Because I don't really want to do that. So even the tinting guys don't want to remove it, and because it is a pain in the neck. They want to just put the new stuff on and move on and get their $300 or $400. So yeah, and once I removed it off of the driver and off of the back, I was pretty happy with it. So again, do it yourself, save money, and if you have tint, taking it off makes it look a lot better, especially if it's all bubbly. All right, seat. So seat is interesting in that there are some people that will get entire seat covers when their seat bottom is, it's usually this part that's cracked. Sometimes it's the seat back, but you can go on eBay, enter your car, enter, you know, color, and they will sell you a custom-made seat bottom. This one was $250. My passenger is perfect. All I had to do was replace this. Fairly straightforward. Watch a video for your car. I did. Basically you take it off, the seat out, and then it kind of push down and give it some space, and it'll come off all the way around. you'll have to unscrew some side parts. And the center actually had some type of Velcro in it. And what's weird is I kept not being able to get it to go down there. In the end, I put my foot there and stepped to get it to grab because it was so poofed out. But once I sat on it a few times, it just locked in. So see, it doesn't quite match perfectly, but I really think that it's because it yellowed from heat in my city. All right, now we're moving into the car. So here's another one that I have video. So I have one on the paint, but I also have video on the stereo. But on this one, I knew that not many people would have this vehicle, and I didn't want to have a full install for my particular car. And my particular car had a weird issue in that I bought the interface for this new stereo, and it was not connecting, and I got no sound out of my speakers. So what, after Crutchfield, back and forth, returns, trying a different interface, they had two different types, and I tried one of them twice. So 3 times. We ended up, he told me just buy an amp. And this amp was a Marine version. That was a Class D 400 watt. So it was really quite small. Now I'll mention Class D. The reason why I mention that is Class D has really good power management. So it doesn't waste a lot of power into heat. So that advantage made it so that it could go in its original location. So underneath the kick panel is a metal plate with the old amp on it. You unplug and remove the metal plate. 2 screws are at the bottom. 1 screw is behind the glove box. So if you pop it down, it'll lower to where you could get to it. So you unscrew the 3rd screw there, the 2 there. Off it comes with the aluminum plate. You stick it in the garage, screw the new amp on it, mount it back, and get the new wires into the new amp. And beautiful sound. Oh my God. It is so good. My son drove it, and he was just, I forgot how nice it was to hear sound in your car. Because forever we had a broken stereo. And he was just sitting in the car after he got home, after he had to do something with it. And just absolutely loving it. The reason why we use this as an amp instead of the built-in amp on the stereo is because it has a woofer tweeter setup. It has the Bose system. And because these are 2 ohm instead of 4 ohm, Crutchfield said that if it drove it directly, it would short out, or the stereo would overheat. So 2 ohms are just too open for it. So it needed to have a separate amp, and this amp did drive that. So look at that as a good product for this situation, because I do have the interface in it. Even though it didn't turn on the amp, it does work the steering wheel controls. So there you go. All right, really nice stereo. If you notice this, I think every car should have one of these. And I see the old-fashioned way of doing the phone mount with the suction cups. It's silly. These have a little 1-inch 3M sticker, double-sided tape thing, and they'll stick. And you can put it wherever you have a 1-inch place to stick it to. And you could probably even stick it up here if you wanted to and fold it down. But the nice thing about that is, you know, with the spring, you can put your phone in there, and you can have your Android Auto Map right there. Now, yeah, I have the wire. That's really nice. And the sound from Spotify sounds absolutely gorgeous. But a lot of the time I just use that and just have it out. I did put this in all of my other vehicles. I'll put a link to those as well. But a $10 item that will keep you compliant with your state driving, because you're not allowed to touch your phone. And if you have it in your lap, you're technically touching it. So it has to be somewhere mounted. So there you go. Get it mounted. All right, next thing. Steering wheel. This is one of the things that everybody is talking to me about how did I do this? And it probably was one of the easiest things there were. I took a lot of time to search to see which one fit my car. I went to a place that I bought the seats, and they mentioned a 15-inch custom mount for $100. I chose to get this from Amazon, leather for $15. I do think that the one with the laces on the sides is the way this works the best. And what happens is you will go from the lace directly behind it to the lace in front, and you pull it, and you just keep doing that all the way around. Now, to start with, you center it, and you have your knot on your string. Then you go from the back to the front, and you pull. Now, it's tightening that first one, but when you go to do the second one, obviously, that first one gets loose. But now when you pull, it's gone through 2 twists. So now when you pull, that first one is getting nice and tight, but the one you're on is still loose. Now you go to the third one and you pull. Again, the second one's getting tight, and the third one's getting as tight as it possibly can, and it won't loosen up. So you don't have to hold it tight, you just have to keep going. And when you get to the spoke, you'll see these laces here. So in the back, you'll just kind of loop it around because you don't want to start a new knot, and you'll come out over here and go from back to front. You pull it tight, just keep going with that same thing. And when you get to a spoke, loop it from the back, start again over here, and work your way all the way around. Now, a lot of people have centering it is their big issue. It's kind of stretchy, so it kind of stuck on the windshield, on the steering wheel where it goes. So it really wasn't wanting to shift on me too much. I didn't feel a need to tape it, but I did kind of make sure it stayed in the center as I worked my way around. You start with this thing in the middle, work your way around. When you're finally at the end, then you tie your knot, and you kind of have to hold it tight so the first 2 are tight while you get the knot, and then you're all good. And it has this beautiful diamond crosshatch pattern. Looks really good. See how the laces at the edges go, as they get behind. Let's see if we can see behind. I don't know if you can see that, but it's laced underneath. All right, so steering wheel done. This is done. Let's talk about carpet cleaning. So carpet cleaning is really interesting in that I am a professional carpet cleaner. I have my own business. I have an employee. So I just know how to do carpet cleaning like crazy, but this took forever. And when I watch those videos, I think, gosh, what's the holdup? Well, it really is hard to do cars because there's so much goop floated in there that underneath the carpet is just stuff that'll get diluted and needs to come through to get out. So you're talking about steaming over and over and over and over, and it would flow. So that brown goo from Coke spills is just getting rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. And you'll spray your soap bottle. It's called pre-spray. And then you work it with your hand brush, and then you steam until you've rinsed all of your soap out. You always want to leave with a good rinsing. You don't want to get it soapy and just give it one quick rinsing and leave it sticky with soap. So you make sure that there's nothing left of soap when you finish. And probably an hour and a half to do the 2 sides and the back. So yeah, it wasn't easy. All right, so here's another repair we had. So this is a vinyl repair, and this is done. I have a picture, but it shows how it has that deep crack. So what do you do with that deep crack? Well, first you heat it with a popsicle stick, and so you're poking it. Take this plastic part off, so this is kind of sitting open because you don't want to melt things. And then you bend that in while you're heating it. So once it's bent in, now you have it so that when you fill it, it's going to be flat. So what do you fill it with? Well, some people use plastic filler, like for cars, car body. I chose to use epoxy, JB Weld, and wow, it was so nice. So basically, as I filled it, I would then sand it, and then I would see little spots where I needed to fill it again, and so I'd mix up some more JB Weld, and I'd fill it, and then I'd sand it, and then I'd fill it. So I'd mix up another batch, sand it. I used the 5-minute, not the one that's all day. So I was able to go in the same day, but it still took some time to dry before I could sand it. And then when I'm finally finished, I got out the dye. Let me show you the dye. So this dye is a little bit thick as well, so it'll take a texture. So this is the idea of this. This is called Leather Max, and it comes with a little pattern stamp. But it didn't really work that well for patterning, but the color is 3 different grays, and if your color is somewhere in the middle, you will mix the two together. So you can get your color pretty good, and it'll give it a nice finish. I don't think the texture looked great. It was more of a sponge, so you can kind of see it kind of looks like what you do with a drywall repair. It doesn't look all that perfect. And here I think I was trying to heat it up a little bit, and I kind of got a heat issue. So yeah, I think if I did it over again, I would have that off and sand it perfectly smooth and not rely on the texture so much to try and hide it. I would just give it a quick over. So it's more getting it flat with the epoxy than texturing it. But hey, it looks pretty good. All right, so there we are there. Now let's do the final thing I had to do the vehicle, and that was this little center console. So the center console basically had swollen from the heat. This had popped out. So what had happened was it's glued underneath the lip of this vinyl is glued under this case, this plastic cover. So I completely removed it, and then with heat I had squeezed it. I tried not to get it too hot because I had melted it before, so I was trying not to get it too hot. I just wanted it a little bit more supple, and had a clamp going here, here, here to squeeze it into place, sitting over there on a coffee table. And then I used construction adhesive. I probably should have used the epoxy, but I had run out by then. So, and I had construction adhesive, and I thought it'd be fine. So I used construction adhesive to hold it down, and then I clamped it this way as well. So multiple clamps pulling it down into the adhesive. Wherever the clamp wasn't, however, there was a little bulge. And because of that, when I put this plate on, it wasn't quite flat, and it wasn't quite screwing in. So I had to sand it and get the stuff that was under, and eventually I got it to where it would screw down. And I wasn't sold on the construction adhesive. I'm not really sure. I think I want something with instant grab that would also glue more flat, but maybe had some filling capacity. So I don't know what the best choice of glue would be. Maybe a more even clamping method and using epoxy would probably have held best. Because as I was scraping some out, because remember it had the fold and it had some stuff making it bow, I was able to just knock it out. It just kind of flaked out. So I don't think it was holding too well to the plastic. But overall, once I screwed the thing on, you know, the bulge is gone. So hey, it works. All right, so there we are. I'm going to start the car and show you what we have to do left. And I kind of want some people's opinion. So you mechanics out there can tell me what you think. Okay, you can kind of hear a little bit of a valve, I think it's the lifters, and it's more noticeable when it's cold, which makes me think it's when it doesn't have enough volume of oil flow. And I think it might be more noticeable after I change the oil. So if you think it's worth fixing, let me know. If you think there's another way of fixing it without pulling everything apart and doing new lifters, let me know. This is a 3.7 liter Dodge Dakota. So there's that. Lastly, I have a video on this, and it's only because it was so hard to find. I think new clamps are really important, And you can see how nice this is because the original just has a nut here. So I could only find these at one place, and that was O'Reilly. So they weren't on Amazon, they weren't at Napa. No place had the replacement ones that would mount this way. You can see how this is the tightening. And this is just like the original, and it said OEM design. And I actually have a video on it, silly enough. But the ones on Amazon, people said they'd have to drill them out to get them to the right size. And this one has the small and the larger hole. And that's the only one that they had, was the one at O'Reilly. And look how nice and clean they were. They were forever getting corroded, the old ones. And I think I just had an intermittent connection a lot. So kind of a big deal. You notice that it says February 25 on the battery, probably because it just wasn't getting charged properly. I had to get one somewhat recently. All right, oil change, new air cleaner, topping off fluids, good air conditioner. So a lot of things to get a car to the point where you really like it. The chrome polish. I think overall, definitely when people want to restore their vehicle, there are things you can do, things you can't do. That valve lifter may be something I can't do. Maybe something I can. I've done brakes a ton of times. So I still have the valve lifter to do. And I bought these really nice, by the way, I didn't like my DA, so I bought an orbital. I never even used it because I did it by hand, polisher. So I really like these Element 3. I put them on my other vehicle, and they're absolutely gorgeous. So they just, the stopping power, the lack of vibration as you're braking. I think the cooling vanes stay cooler because rust doesn't fill them, and because it's so better chosen. And it actually said that they stay cooler because of that rust protection. So I really think, all in all, really nice product. So that's going in there. Maybe the lifter, maybe I can run it the way it is. And then I'll also give you an update on the paint if I have an issue with it on longevity. And that's about it. Let me know your comments. I appreciate them. What you think I did wrong, what you think I could do to make it better. And thanks for watching. Give me a like if you like this type of video. Have a good day. Bye-bye.